Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Tiana here, and I am from the likes of the Mexi Toys videos, as you probably expect at this point in time. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to, presumably speaking of, the final Let's Play for 2024. And so much so, we're going on to a mobile phone of all things. And here we go on to the next Super Monkey Ball game we would like to do for our channel. And that's what appears to be Super Monkey Ball Sakura Edition. Or originally though, this game was originally called Super Monkey Ball 2 for the iOS smartphones, but they somehow changed the name into Super Monkey Ball Sakura Edition, which means, about the fact that if you couldn't tell already, this is the Sega Forever version of this particular app. So relatively speaking though, yeah, basically, this is just an iPhone Super Monkey Ball game, as you probably expect at this point in time. And as far as I'm aware, that we have to utilize with the, not only touchscreen controls for the sake of the forms of menu navigation, but it's also about the fact that the game encourages you to able to utilize motion controls a lot. Well, you see what I mean if we somehow dive into this game for reals. So, and obviously though is about the fact that if you couldn't tell already why is the line was still visible on the center of the bottom of the screen, well, this is mainly because, as you probably already expect, I'm obviously going to be capturing the actual footage from the actual capture system on my phone. So relatively speaking though, so you can see the quality a lot more better. And actually, as it turns out, is about the fact that this is my second attempt for the actual recording session, by the way, in terms of going for this game in particular, which I'll explain more about that if we somehow manage to dive into this. So, seriously, that Gon model right there looks incredibly odd in this game. Well, relatively speaking though, as you can tell, obviously though, much like any other Super Monkey Ball games up to this point, basically though, we have a choice between 4 different playable characters, ranging from Ai, Mimi, Baby, and Gon. So obviously though, it's about the fact that much like in any other previous Super Monkey Ball Let's Plays we have done in the past, obviously though, we'll try to show off these characters in a chronological order, and as you can see, we had ended up in the forms of the world map selection screen. So in addition about the fact that we might come across into that familiar worlds ever since in Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz, but there's also this special world which, yeah, we'll save that particular topic until whenever we get to the actual later progression for the entire game itself. So obviously though, if you couldn't tell already, that when you're first time playing for the game, we have to go for a lot of tutorials, by the way, ranging from, well, as you can tell about the fact that there's actually that particular ball meter on the bottom left corner right there. Basically what this means though is about the fact that if you try to tilt the phone, it doesn't matter what direction you go into, basically though, it actually shows that the dot was actually indicating that which specific movement of direction you're gonna move. So, yeah, as I said this before, is about the fact that this game encourages you to able to use motion controls, which, or to be more accurate though, gyro sensing controls, which is very similar to how the Wii remotes for the likes of Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz, as well as the forms of Super Monkey Ball Step and Roll, and even especially noticeable with Super Monkey Ball 3D for the 3DS, and even especially noticeable with Banana Splits for the PlayStation Vita. So, relatively speaking, I was about the fact that there's one little thing you might able to actually realize about this, is that, well, obviously though, is about the fact that if I can recall correctly, that, you know, as I said this before, is about the fact that this game was originally called Super Monkey Ball 2 for the iOS smartphone devices, which eventually at some point they changed its name into Super Monkey Ball Sakura Edition, to make things a little bit obvious about the fact that it doesn't get confused with all the other players out there who's able to actually experience any other Super Monkey Ball games in the past. So, anyways though, so here's the forms of the entire gameplay itself. If you ever played the previous Super Monkey Ball games before, you feel right at home basically, except the fact that unlike in Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz, including HD counterpart as well, heck, even especially noticeable with the forms of the latest releases during that time, which appears to be Super Monkey Ball Banana Mania, as well as Banana Rumble, where in Banana Rumble, it does manage to introduce into ourselves this very new ability, which is of course the Spin Dash, which that particular discussion can wait, probably at some point until specifically for next year. So, And obviously though, we have to go and tilt the actual monkey, or tilt the stage to be more specifically, in order to able to guide the monkey in a ball, so you pretty much know what to expect. And as you can tell, the first world we're gonna be dive into was actually based off from Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz World 2, which appears to be Jumble Jungle. And as far as I'm aware, there is also technically the yet another Super Monkey Ball game that originally came out on the smartphones, which is simply called Super Monkey Ball back in 2008. But unfortunately though, every once in a while that game is no longer available, probably because of no matter what though, that basically though, in Super Monkey Ball 1 on the smartphone, basically though, that most of these sprites are heavily borrowed from Super Monkey Ball Touch and Roll, but you do able to come across into some worlds based off from Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz, ranging from Monkey Island, Smooth Sherbet, Judgerous Desert, and as well as the forms of Volcano Pools, and finally Space Case. So I'm pretty sure that in Super Monkey Ball 2, or in some cases nowadays, Super Monkey Ball Sakura Edition, where basically though, I believe certain worlds is going to be based off from Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz again. However though, I believe there are some worlds it might able to actually appear in this game, which appears to be, as you probably would expect, Jumble Jungle, and eventually at some point Pirates Ocean, and even Sinking Swamp, and even especially noticeable with Corporate Caverns, and finally Ultra Heaven. But there's a special world that we were able to actually realize that one of the worlds is actually based off from Super Monkey Ball Step and Roll, which that was around that time about the fact that they're trying to able to release this game in particular back then to go alongside with the release of Super Monkey Ball Step and Roll back in sometime in 2010. I might be mistaken, but either way though, mind you, it has been about a very long while since we actually played a Super Monkey Ball game in our channel since Super Monkey Ball Banana Mania, and no matter what though, it's pretty cool about the fact that we did indeed manage able to have ourselves the brand new Super Monkey Ball game exclusively onto the Nintendo Switch, which obviously though, that we somehow experienced Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble. But relatively speaking though, as far as I'm aware, that we are almost pretty much done with the rest of the series up to this point. I mean, no matter what though, I would have able to actually refuse to able to actually tackle through Super Monkey Ball Adventure, to be honest with you, just because obviously that game is already bad enough as it is. But either way though, we shall wait and see what happens. So anyway, so yeah, a few things I want to talk about is about the fact that, well, today's date of course there is the 26th of December today, in some cases in 2024 today. So yeah, relatively speaking though, happy Boxing Day everybody, especially concerning for the fact that obviously though, after the events of yesterday's Christmas Day, that we obviously did have a fantastic time during the films event yesterday. And what's even more impressive to us though, is that yes indeed, we did manage able to watch Wallace and Gromit Vengeance Most Foul for the first time for the likes of the films of, well, on TV. And what was my final thoughts of the film actually? Well, obviously though, much like Sonic the Hedgehog 3 movie, I don't think I can probably get into more further details about the films of the story and all that stuff. But I will say this right from the start though, I would absolutely recommend that film by the way, because it has been about, you know, almost 20 years since the actual first feature-length film for Wallace and Gromit, for the likes of, you know, not only made by Aardman, but also with the forms of the partnership with DreamWorks. So yeah, relatively speaking though, if you ever come across into that particular film, probably at some point in the next couple of days, and during the films within Netflix's channel, or to be more specifically, Netflix app, obviously though, you should probably able to recommend seeing the film, especially concerning for the fact that if you do manage able to have the Netflix account with you. So either way though, now I'll get to the forms of later details about the forms of my, or to be more specifically, the actual discussion about the forms of, you know, certain films we did somehow see during the films within 2024, just before we move on to 2025 in general. So either way though, I suppose we'll let Maxie will mention more about it during at some point until by the end of this month, as well as towards the very end of the year. So, and as a matter of fact though, is about the fact that I'm pretty sure we've only got about 6 more days now until we're about to be approaching on to 2025, so we can pretty much expect to know of what's to come. So anyway, so there's also another thing else that's worth noting for, is about the fact that the most unfortunate thing that's been happened recently, and that's what appears to be for the fact that, unfortunately though, various Cartoon Network Nintendo Switch games will be delisted on eShop, and they did somehow listed a couple of games for the likes of Cartoon Network, and those games are Samurai Jack Battle Through Time, OK, KO, Let's Play Heroes, and as well as Steven Universe Save the Light, or Steven Universe Unleash the Light. That basically those games will be unfortunately be delisted up to that point. So yeah, it kind of sucks though, especially concerning for the fact that, well, I haven't exactly got those games, let's be honest here, but that's just mainly because I am super excited to know of what specific library of games they're able to actually get revealed for the likes of 2025, especially concerning for the fact that, well, aside from the fact that recently though, I've recently pre-ordered Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, so that means by that time when that particular version finally came out, obviously though we can able to actually just to guarantee to try out the Cloud World that originally came from the 3DS version. So, but I digress. So as you can see right there, we actually come across this very peculiar stage, or to be more specifically, the Crown Stage. And in order to be able to unlock the Crown Stage, as far as I'm aware, we need to collect every single bananas in each and every single level per world. So, for example though, is about the fact that in order to be able to receive the crown, as you can tell from the main menu of the actual map selection screen, basically though, in order to be able to achieve the crown, well, obviously though, you do need to get all 10 of these bananas in any level, as you can see. And since we somehow completed the first 10 stages, so this technically means that Jumble Jungle is technically not done yet. So this means we've got 10 more stages left, and also same applies with the forms of the additional level as well. So as far as I'm aware, this will be a full 100% completion playthrough, probably because no matter what though, we'll try to go after, or try to obtain rather, every single bananas in each and every single level, as well as tackle through every single stages as much as possible. So, relatively speaking, I was about the fact that it will be a deathless run, at least as far as I'm concerned, because if you do at one point fall out of the entire stage, or in some cases if you do manage to mess up in one of those stages in particular, if you do fall out, basically though, your banana counter will be gone for good, unless you do have to restart your entire progression, or to be more specifically though, you can able to actually pull off a specific cool trick, and that's what appears to be for the fact that if you pause the game at the right time, and then if you really want to try again, you have to quickly exit out the app and then just try to close it by simply just trying to able to swipe the actual the screen upwards to able to actually close down the actual thing, and then you go back into the actual app, and then the game tells you about the fact that you want to continue through the stage, and then you can press yes, assuming of course you don't want to let that particular Fallout font show up. So that's the only key factor I will have to suggest by that point. So, but either way though, I will try my best if I was able to participate for going for a true 100% completion. So yeah, wish me luck, especially concerning for the fact that, well, just like the bones of how it does it on any other Super Monkey Ball games, well, the only time exception being is of course Super Monkey Ball 2 as well as Super Monkey Ball Deluxe when it comes to, you know, not tackling through challenge mode, because technically we've already done those specific stuff ever since, you know, Super Monkey Ball Banana Mania, because as far as I'm aware though, that way we can able to show off certain stages, but with a modern physics engine as opposed to classic engine system. So, well, that's besides the point. So anyway, also, another thing else is worth noting for, exponentially speaking though, is about the fact that, did you guys know, it's been 10 years ago since one of those particular Madagascar spin-off series was existent, and that's what appears to be All Hail King Julian, which as a result though, despite the fact that I've never actually watched any of the series for my life, well, that's just mainly because I'm pretty much more accustomed to the Penguins of Madagascar, to be more specifically though. Well, this is mainly because I do have a lot of nostalgia memories with that particular show to me though. Although, the most unfortunate thing for me though, is that in order to be able to see the rest of the episodes of the Penguins of Madagascar these days, is that I have to specifically try to able to actually access to Paramount Plus, similar to Knuckles the series, although luckily though, despite the fact that we still got ourselves the Knuckles the series on DVD still, well, speaking of which though, we still have no idea when does the DVD/Blu-ray release of Sonic the Hedgehog 3 movie was going to be releasing. But my speculation for that is about to due out maybe at some point in April for some time. Well, sometimes though is about the fact that after when the film has officially been released on a big screen on the cinema, basically though we have to wait for about approximately 4 months away until, you know, the actual thing is about to be releasing during that front. So, well, that seems to be the case when it comes to likely for this entire routine, when it comes to likely for film releases on home media. So, well, unless if you also want to count the forms of digital versions, so either way, that's as far as I was expecting. So, but yeah, for the most part though, as you can tell, I have to keep myself steady with all this particular gyro sensing control sometimes, but that's just mainly because, again, if I dare rush this though, I can easily just smash able to fall off very easily, especially concerning for the fact that, well, I do only know for the fact that, obviously though, if you couldn't tell already, you're able to get extra lives in this game, similar to the forms of how it does it in Super Monkey Ball Touch and Roll, at least if I recall that correctly. You're able to actually get yourselves an extra life if you do manage to collect 10 bananas, so relatively speaking though, at the very least the lives are very generous with you, especially concerning for the fact that I will miraculously try to able to not get ourselves our first continue, or in some cases the first game over in this run, although unlike its very schizophrenic banana splits for the PlayStation Vita to me though, well, this is mainly because of this very schizophrenic difficulty, which as far as I'm aware, I don't think we can probably tackle for that game anytime soon, because obviously though that Banana Rumble was now a thing, so obviously though once we basically done with this game in particular first, and then we can able to dive into Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble for the Nintendo Switch, which as a result though, yeah, that's all I can really think about it. Speaking of which though, is about the fact that I recently did manage to download the final 2 playable characters for the entire DLC for Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble, and those 2 characters are Hatsune Miku and Godzilla, which as a result though, despite the fact I do have to pay for these specific characters unfortunately, because the strangest thing out of them all though, is that those characters are never been a part of the Sega Character Pass for some odd reason, so but eventually though, we did somehow manage to download those 2 characters, so I'm pretty sure my character selection for Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble has officially been completed. So as a result though, yeah, we'll talk more about that, we'll talk more about that game if we get onto the forms of Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble, if some toy sales can able to actually tackle for that game, assuming of course about the fact that we need to figure out something in terms of the forms of this New Year's resolution for 2025. Well, we are still playing through games and stuff like that still, but it's just about the fact that we need to figure out something else in terms of specific plans we're going to be working on. So time will tell, folks, time will tell. So but anyway though, also another thing else is worth noting for, at least as far as I'm aware, that Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake has sales for about surpassed 2 million copies worldwide. So yeah, it's doing rather well, especially concerning for the fact that, well, presumably speaking though, if they have like, you know, the Nintendo Switch version or the PlayStation 5 version these days, so I'm sure enough though is about the fact that that particular remake is doing pretty dang well, unlike the forms of certain other Sonic games in the past few years, ranging from Sonic Lost World, Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric, and Shadow Crystal combined, as well as from that though, Knuckles Chaotix, Sonic and the Black Knight, because as far as I'm aware though, it's probably best if we're able to actually discuss on that until tomorrow, because, well, straight to the point though is about the fact that when it comes to uploading schedules for this game in particular, it's going to be most likely takes place in not only for today, but all the way up to the New Year's Eve, just before, you know, we make our way to the new year, which is of course 2025. So, in fact, still, let me know in the comments down below for the question of the day. Are you guys still excited for 2025 coming up? Because I'm sure enough though, I did have some high expectations though, especially concerning for the fact that, you know, the next Nintendo system will be on its way eventually at some point. But then again though, we'll have to wait and see what happens until that time comes. So, but anyways, let's tackle through the final stage in Jumble Jungle, and this stage is going to be pretty tricky if you really want to get that particular crown, especially, again, if you mess up at one point, you can't get the crown unless if you have to X out the stage and you have to redo the entire process all over again, so... And yeah, you have to do have a little bit of a leap of faith here, because otherwise, if you mess that up, then you have to restart the entire thing all over again, so... But thankfully though, there's only one stage in particular, so with that being said folks, instead we get endings of this point right here. So join me tomorrow for more of Let's Play of Super Monkey Ball Sakura Edition. Is that we're going on to the next world, which appears to be Pirate's Ocean, so yeah, this will be interesting. So I'll see you guys until tomorrow. Later fellas.